Hey everyone! ChatGPT Taylor aka Taylor here. Welcome back to the channel. Today will be a continuation of the Disventure Camp Top 5 series. This series counts down my top 5 lists of certain topics related to Disventure Camp. Last time, I talked about 5 things I think total drama fan seasons should avoid. This video will look at something different. If there are any ideas for this series that you would like to see me play out, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And with that, let's get started. Before I begin, make sure to like and subscribe if this video is to your liking, and make sure to comment down below if there's anything that you would like to see going forward. Today's topic is something that I thought about after rewatching the recent episodes of Disventure Camp All Stars. The topic is, 5 times campers were screwed by twists in Disventure Camp. Twists aren't uncommon to shows like Disventure Camp. Twists like a sudden double elimination, multiple people winning immunity, and an auto-elimination challenge are great ways to spice things up and deviate from the typical format of the show. However, these twists also have the potential to screw over campers who would have been safe had the twists not been implemented. This creates some interesting hypotheticals. If these twists hadn't been implemented, how far would the screwed over campers go in their season? That's what this video aims to find out. So for this video, I will be going over 5 instances where a camper was screwed over by a twist, explain how they would have been safe otherwise, as well as give a rough estimate of how far they would have gotten had they not gotten screwed over by the twist. And with that, let's get started. The first instance that I want to talk about is in episode 5 of season 1, when Ashley was screwed over by the double elimination twist. As a refresher, for this episode's challenge, not only would the losing team have to vote out one camper from their own team, but one camper from the winning team would also get to vote at that episode's elimination ceremony, and their sole vote would eliminate a second person from the losing team. What was the result of this twist? Well, the purple team lost the challenge. Ellie, Alec, and Fiore teamed up to vote out Lil, and once Gabby came over from the other team, Ellie prompted her to vote against Ashley, sending the Scoutmaster and the Cowgirl home on the same night. To put it simply, Ashley would have survived if this twist isn't in play. Since Gabby had the sole vote in eliminating Ashley from the purple team, if the twist never existed, then Gabby would never have that opportunity, meaning that Ashley would still be on the purple team going into episode 6. Sure, Ashley still loses her closest ally, but at least she is still there. The craziest thing is that I think Ashley could have lasted a little longer had she not been eliminated in episode 5. I'll try to keep this as concise as possible. For the next immunity challenge, since one person from each team will win individual immunity, it's very possible for Ashley to win immunity for herself. Assuming that the purple team sticks together like they did in canon, and assuming that Ashley can run faster than Fiore, which I think is safe to assume considering that Ashley is older, stronger, and taller than Fiore, I think Fiore still gets shot by Jensen. This leaves Ellie, Alec, and Ashley left to cross the lake to the final bell. And while there's not a lot of clear proof that Ashley is a strong swimmer, she was at least fast enough to give Fiore a strong lead heading into the final section of the episode 5 challenge in Disventure Camp All Stars. So Ashley could realistically win immunity. And if she does manage to win, I think Fiore and Ellie vote for each other, while Ashley decides to use this opportunity to finally take out Fiore. This leaves Alec as the swing vote, and I think Fiore is doomed no matter what. If Alec votes for Fiore, Fiore is out. But if Alec ties the vote, then Fiore and Ellie have to compete in the cage tiebreaker, and considering Ellie's larger size, I think Ellie ends up winning, eliminating Fiore. So Fiore is out no matter what. And if the twist where the person voted out still goes to the other team, then I think Fiore might get targeted by the other team if they lose the next challenge, just like they did to Ellie in canon. Without Fiore in the game, Ashley could find a path to the finals if she befriends Jake like she did in Disventure Camp All Stars, and maybe she joins the members of the teal team in voting out Ellie and Alec, except for maybe a detour where Gabby uses her totem to save Ellie and eliminate Dan. But even then, Ashley could easily make it to the top 4 if she manages to keep Tom, Jake, and Miriam together as her allies. And if she uses her athleticism to win the final 4 immunity challenge, she could find herself in the finale with a strong chance at pulling out a win. In summary, if the double elimination twist didn't happen in episode 5 of season 1, there's a timeline where Ashley ends up winning the season. Don't get me wrong, a lot has to go right for this to happen, but it's not impossible. And imagine a world where Ashley wins season 1 instead of Miriam. Does Ashley get targeted way earlier in season 3? Does she form an all-winners alliance with James as a form of protection? Do Tom and Jake even break up in this timeline? All I can say is that there's a lot that could have changed if Ashley didn't get screwed by the double elimination twist. And somehow, the next camper on this list could have shaken up the timeline even more if they didn't get twist screwed. The next instance of a camper getting screwed by a twist is Connor getting screwed over by the double elimination twist in episode 3 of season 2. As a refresher, the green team lost the immunity challenge in this episode, and even though Connor, Kai, and Rhea banded together to vote for Yul, the alliance of Yul, Hunter, Tess, and Ali stuck together to eliminate Kai. Once Kai left the ceremony, Crystal revealed that as a twist, the green team would be voting out another camper from their team. But before they could vote, Connor quit, likely to eliminate any possibility of Rhea getting voted out instead of himself. Connor was screwed over by the twist because without it, Connor wasn't going to get eliminated anytime soon. Now, you might argue that Connor probably would have quit if the green team lost another challenge. Well, in the canon timeline, the green team never lost another challenge, so if Connor stayed, he probably would have made it to the merge, assuming that Yul is still swapped to the orange team and the orange team loses the next 2 challenges, which I think should still happen since there's nothing serious that could prevent those events from happening. Maybe Connor finds the team swapper advantage in the forest instead of Rhea, who knows. Either way, considering the green team's future winning streak, Connor could have easily made it to the merge if he didn't quit. And I don't think he quits if Rhea isn't in any danger of being eliminated, which shouldn't happen if the green team keeps winning. I think Connor makes it far without the twist. Let's assume there's an elimination in episode 6 to compensate for no double elimination in episode 3, and that Maggie and Yul are eliminated pre-merge like in canon. If James and Aiden complete the episode 6 challenge first like in canon and win immunity, then I could see Connor, Rhea, Rosa, Lake, Aiden, and James banding together to vote out one member of the poly trio. And since Hunter hasn't really shown his challenge skills yet, let's say they vote out Tess first. For episode 7, even if Connor takes Tessa's spot in Team 2, I don't think he's enough to get Team 2 the win, so Team 1 still wins part 1 of the challenge, meaning that Hunter wins immunity. And assuming the alliance sticks together, Ali probably goes home next. For episode 8, if Carol wins immunity and also gives immunity to Hunter and Rhea, I think Lake, Rosa, and Rhea vote for James like in canon, and Connor joins them due to his connection with Rhea. So if Carol, James, and Hunter still vote for Lake like in canon, and Aiden throws his vote like in canon, then James goes home here instead. For episode 9, with Connor still here, it's significantly more difficult for Carol to manipulate Rhea, since Connor probably won't leave Rhea by herself. But with James gone, Aiden doesn't get motivated to sabotage Carol, Carol ends up winning immunity, Aiden sides with Lake and Rosa to target Hunter, Hunter probably joins Carol in voting for Aiden out of self-preservation, leaving Connor and Rhea as the swing votes. I think Rhea flips to take out Aiden since he voted for her at the last ceremony, and Connor probably joins her too, sending Aiden home in 7th. If we introduce a double elimination here since Carol wasn't medically evacuated, I think Hunter and Carol vote for Lake, just like they did in episode 8, and I think Lake and Rosa vote for Hunter again. Regardless of who Rhea and Connor vote, I think Lake is safe in this spot. Since Rosa and Lake were left out of the last vote and Rosa knows that Lake was the target in the previous episode, I can imagine Rosa suspecting that Lake would be targeted next and play her totem on her, nullifying the votes against Lake and sealing Hunter's fate. Episode 10 is where things get a bit questionable. Since I don't think we've seen enough evidence to suggest that Connor is good at shooting things, he probably doesn't win immunity. And I can imagine a scenario where Carol flips to join Lake and Rosa in voting out Connor, in order for Carol to secure Rhea's complete loyalty. However, he could make it further if Carol stays with Rhea and Connor and votes out Lake at the final 5 instead. From here, I think Carol probably wins the final 4 immunity challenge based solely on part 2 of the challenge dealing with shooting, and I can imagine Carol joining Rosa Maria in forcing a tie against Connor, causing Connor and Rosa Maria to compete in the cage duel. I'm actually not sure who wins in this scenario. But if Connor doesn't lose here, he's probably the first one eliminated in the finale. Best case scenario is that he picks Hunter as his helper since Connor didn't vote Hunter out in this timeline, but if Hunter supports Carol instead, Connor might have to settle for Kai. Either way, I can't imagine that Connor would be good at riding skis, and since he's visibly the largest camper in the season, I feel like his partner would have a hard time pulling him up the mountain. So, he probably doesn't get to glide down to the dock in time, ending his run there. So in summary, if the double elimination twist doesn't exist, Connor doesn't feel prompted to quit, he at least makes it to the final 5, and he could end up in 5th, 4th, or 3rd depending on the next few episodes. If you want me to go further in depth into these possible scenarios in future videos, please let me know in the comments section down below. But no matter how it plays out for Connor, this clearly shows that Connor could have made it really far in the competition had the double elimination twist not prompted him to quit. But for our next instance, it's not about the double elimination. It's about double immunity. The third instance of a camper being screwed by a twist is Lake being screwed by Carol's return in episode 8 of season 2. When Carol returned in episode 8, not only did she get immunity, but she got to award immunity to Hunter and Ali, forcing the majority alliance of 5 to turn against each other. While Rosa, Rhea, and Lake targeted James, James joined Carol, Hunter, and Ali to vote against Lake. As for Aiden, since his 2 closest allies were James and Lake, he didn't want to vote for either of them. This prompted Aiden to throw his vote on Rhea, causing a 4-3-1 split vote that sent Lake home. Lake was definitely screwed over by this twist. If Carol wasn't allowed to return to the competition or she wasn't granted the ability to give immunity to 2 other campers, then Hunter and Ali would have been eligible for elimination, and the majority alliance wouldn't have had to turn against each other yet. Sure, it would have happened eventually, but not now. Lake would have had at least one more episode of safety before being thrown into danger, and that's what we'll get into next. How far does Lake go in this game without a twist? For this scenario, let's assume that Lake managed to survive against the killer, allowing Lake to win immunity and preventing Carol from entering the game. With Lake immune, Hunter and Allie are left vulnerable, and there's no reason for the majority alliance to break up at this point. I'll assume that they target the biggest threat outside of their alliance, which is Hunter, since he won the previous episode's immunity challenge. For episode 9, some stuff changes. Rosa probably still wins part 1 of the challenge, but since there's only 6 people left, her reward is that both her and her partner can carry the sled up the hill, rather than one of them having to sit on the sled. When splitting up into pairs, James and Aiden stay together, but Allie asks Rhea to join her, leaving Lake with Rosa. I think Lake and Rosa end up winning part 2 of the challenge since they don't have to carry anyone, but that's not the biggest thing that happens in this part. Now that Allie and Rhea are paired together, Allie uses this time to sway Rhea to her side, making her realize that she is willing to work with her, and that it's in her best interest to split up Lake and Rosa now while she has the chance. As for part 3, I think Rosa and Lake lose very quickly since they're still using Rosa's sled in this timeline, which broke in canon, so I expect the same to happen here. As for the other 2 duos, I'm going to assume that James and Aiden win immunity, since they only lost in canon because Carol rammed into them, and since Carol isn't here in this timeline, that shouldn't happen. As a side note, I'm assuming that Rhea and Allie are using Rhea's sled for parts 2 and 3 of this challenge, since it's kind of impractical for Allie's sled to support 2 people. For the elimination ceremony, I think Rhea tries to convince James and Aiden to flip and help her and Allie take out Lake. I think James would be on board since he was willing to do this in canon. Meanwhile, Rosa and Lake stay loyal and vote for Allie, since she's the only camper left who's not in their 5-person alliance. This leaves Aiden as the swing vote. I know he won't vote for Lake since he cares about his friendship with her too much. So he either votes with Rosa and Lake to force a tie, or Aiden throws his vote against Rhea again, which would cause a 3-2-1 vote that sends Lake home. I'm going to assume that he votes for Allie since he doesn't really have a connection to her, resulting in a tie between Allie and Lake likely wins the tiebreaker considering her proven challenge strength, sending Allie home. For episode 10, since Hunter is gone, someone else has to win immunity. I'm going to assume that James and Rhea team up against Lake and Rosa, leaving Aiden in the middle. Since there's no clear evidence that James, Rhea, Lake, and Rosa are very good at shooting handguns, for the sake of simplicity, I'll assume that they all take each other out, allowing Aiden to win immunity. This split continues into the vote. James and Rhea target Lake again since they know she's a threat and Rhea knows that Rosa has the totem, so Lake is the safer vote. Meanwhile, I think Lake and Rosa vote for James since they probably feel less loyalty to him than Rhea, even though Rhea betrayed them. As for Aiden, since the 2 targets are his 2 closest allies, I think he throws his vote again, causing a 2-2-1 split vote. However, knowing that Lake almost went home at the last ceremony, I think Rosa plays it safe and uses her totem to save Lake, sending James home instead. Episode 11 is a lot simpler. Aiden probably still wins immunity since that's what happened in canon, and Rhea probably gets voted out 3-1 since Rosa and Lake feel more loyalty to Aiden since he helped them force a tie at the final 6. Heading into the finale, each finalist gets a helper. Aiden obviously picks James, and I think Rosa picks Kai since they seemed very cordial with each other early in the season. As for Lake, I think she picks Hunter for his challenge strength and because of their conversations back in episode 6. Now, you might be thinking, hey, what about Maggie? Maggie was an ally of both of them. Yep, that's true. And that's exactly why she wasn't picked. I don't think Maggie would want to choose to support one ally over the other, so Rosa and Lake agree that out of respect for Maggie's dual support, neither of them would pick her. If these are the duos heading into the challenge, then I'm reasonably sure that either Rosa or Lake wins the season, and more often than not, it's Lake. With Hunter by her side, Lake should be able to hold a decent lead through the first few parts of the challenge. She probably keeps pace with Aiden and James due to James's comfortability with driving the snowmobile and the car at a fast speed. Once they get to the top of the cliff, Aiden probably freaks out at the height, and Lake has to comfort him. If she manages to comfort Aiden enough to jump off and glide down to the dock with him, then they advance to the final section of the challenge. Carol probably uses the minigun to shoot Aiden off his bike, allowing Lake to make it to the end and win. Now if Aiden is unable to jump, then Lake has to face Rosa in the final section, and the winner is decided by whoever Carol decides to shoot. If she supports Lake, she shoots Rosa, allowing Lake to win the season. But if she supports Rosa, she shoots Lake, allowing Rosa to win instead. So 2 times out of 3, Lake wins, and when she doesn't, Rosa wins instead. So in summary, Lake definitely makes it to the finale and probably goes on to win if Carol doesn't re-enter the competition and give Hunter and Allie immunity. Lake got screwed even more than Ashley and Connor since at least with those 2, there's a bit of ambiguity as to whether or not they could have won. But with Lake, it's very clear that she could have won had she survived episode 8, stopped Carol from returning, and prevented Hunter and Ali from being awarded immunity. I guess this shows that not only can a twist ruin your game, but the decisions made as a result of these twists can ruin your game. And that's even more true with the next example on this list. The fourth instance of a camper being screwed by twists is Tess getting screwed over by the two-team elimination ceremony in episode 9 of season 3. As a refresher, episode 9's immunity challenge only had one team winning immunity, while the two losing teams would go to the elimination ceremony together and collectively vote out one person amongst their group. The result was that the yellow and cyan teams lost, and since Tess, Tom, and Aiden voted out Ellie at the last ceremony, Gabby flipped and worked with the yellow team to vote out Tess by a vote of 5-3. Had this twist not been included in the season, Tess would have survived regardless of which team lost the challenge. If the yellow team loses, then Tess is safe. And if the cyan team loses, Tess can easily join Tom and Aiden in voting out Gabby 3-1. Now, you might argue that Tess should have just kept Ellie in the game if she didn't want to get eliminated. Well, Tess didn't know that this twist would have appeared in the game, so I don't think you can blame Tess's elimination entirely on her episode 8 decision, since that's acting in hindsight. It's not like she knew about episode 9's twist and still chose to vote out Ellie anyways. Tess assumed that the next episode would have a normal elimination, and if that were the case, she would be safe no matter who won the next immunity challenge. So case in point, I think this twist screwed over Tess's game since Tess would have made it to the merge if this twist wasn't here. But how far would Tess make it if there's no double team elimination ceremony? First of all, since there won't be a double team elimination ceremony, that means that two teams have to win the immunity challenge. Since in canon, the magenta team won and the yellow team was closer to winning than the cyan team, let's have the cyan team lose. I think Aiden and Tom easily vote for Gabby in order to minimize the backlash from voting out Ellie. As for Gabby, even though it might be smarter for her to vote for Aiden or Tom and ask Tess to help her force a tie, considering that Gabby tends to make moves based on her emotions, and since Gabby seemed to blame Tess the most for Ellie's elimination, I think Gabby votes for Tess. So no matter who Tess votes for, Gabby is out. I think the most realistic option is that Tess votes for Gabby. Gabby probably has some sort of outburst declaring that she's voting for Tess and implores Aiden and Tom to join her, but they don't listen. Without Gabby, the villains head into the merge with a 6-4 disadvantage. Since Gabby isn't there to tip off the villains regarding Aiden's problems with Jake, I think Alec does it instead, since Alec manipulated Jake into thinking that Tom and Aiden were close back in episode 2. Most of the episode should play out the same. Aiden accidentally shoots Jake, Alec wins immunity, and the non-villains divide into two factions. Ali, Tess, Tom, and Aiden vote for Jake, while Jake and Ashley vote for Aiden. This leaves the villains alliance as the swing votes. And I think they still target Ashley, hoping that the non-villains are split enough that the villains' 4 votes would be enough to send Ashley home. However, the result is a 4-4-2 tie, and I think Ashley wins the tiebreaker since she seems to be more resourceful than Jake. For the comeback competition, the pairs are the same except Hunter is paired with Ali, Ellie is paired with Tess, and Gabby is paired with Gret. With this arrangement, Connor probably still returns to the competition since Fiore and Alec probably still sabotage the motorcycles, causing the same 4 pairings to make it to the cliffside, where all the canon events continue in this timeline. With Connor back, and assuming Alec still wins immunity, then the non-villains probably unite under Connor and Ashley's leadership, which is probably easier now that Jake is gone, allowing them to take out one of the non-immune villains. I think they probably target Yul, since Alec and Rhea have immunity, and perhaps they see Gret as a more tolerable person to be around. For episode 13, since Yul isn't here, I'll have Rhea fighting alongside Gret, and they manage to beat Connor and Ali. And since Jake isn't here to save Aiden from falling, it's possible that Rhea and Gret win immunity. Either way, since Alex still doesn't have powers in this timeline, he loses immunity, and I think the heroes stick together to take him out in 8th. An easy choice to make if Rhea is immune. For episode 14, due to the previous eliminations, we have brand new duos. Aiden and Tom, Ali and Tess, Rhea and Gret, and Ashley and Connor. With this arrangement, I think Ali and Tess finish last due to Ali's insecurities regarding looking silly, and Tess would probably be too passive to stop Ali from feeling this way. And for the sake of the storyline, I think this is where it ends for Tess. Tess might even quit if Ali has the worst TikToks. It sounds like something she would do. So in summary, if the double team elimination ceremony in episode 9 doesn't occur, Tess makes it to episode 14 at least, and potentially further. It may not be the biggest increase in screen time, but it's certainly more than in canon. And Tessa's survival actually gives the non-villains alliance better leverage in the game due to the 6-4 advantage they would have in the merge. Tessa's survival also means that Jake gets eliminated earlier, which would probably placate the section of the fanbase who doesn't like Jake. So in some ways, keeping Tess around longer could have produced a timeline with less pandemonium in the community. And with the final instance on this list, I'm inclined to say similar things. The 5th camper that I feel was screwed over by twists was Gabby being screwed over by the auto-elimination challenge in episode 14 of season 3. As a refresher, this was the episode where the campers competed in pairs and had to record each other doing TikTok dances. The last pair to reach the finish line would be in danger of elimination, and whoever is judged to have the worst TikToks between the two of them would be eliminated. The end result was Gabby and Gret getting last place, and because Gret's phone was lost in the lake, only Gret's TikToks made it to the finish line, resulting in Gabby's elimination. Had this auto-elimination twist not been implemented, I don't think Gabby gets voted out here. Let's assume a scenario where this challenge is a simple immunity challenge where the first ones to arrive win immunity. In this case, Aiden and Rhea win immunity. With them immune, I guess that Alec and Rhea target Connor, while Connor and Aiden target Alec. And with Gabby and Gret as the swing votes, the numbers aren't there for Gabby to get eliminated here. So had this twist not been implemented, Gabby at least makes it past this episode. But now for the all-important question. How far does Gabby make it without this twist? Well, if episode 14 has an elimination ceremony, and Alec, Rhea, Connor, and Aiden vote as I previously stated, this leaves Gabby, Gret, Jake, and Ali in the middle. Since Jake comforted Connor at the end of the canon episode, I think he joins Connor in voting for Alec. For Gret, since she showed her anger towards Alec in the canon episode 15 for not defending her against Yul, I think Gret votes against him as well. And since Gabby and Gret are great friends by this point, I think she votes for Alec too. So no matter where Ali votes, Alec is guaranteed to get voted out. For the purposes of establishing something solid, let's just say that she votes for Jake due to her episode 14 confessional where she said that she was going to stop caring what people thought about her. Sure, it's not the best strategic move, but episode 16 showed that she's not really making moves due to strategy, so I think it makes sense. For episode 15, let's assume that Gret still locates the immunity totem, but instead of telling Jake and Connor, she tells Gabby instead, since Gret is closer to her than she is to Jake and Connor, allowing Gabby to get the totem. For the challenge, I guess it comes down to Jake and Gabby. I'm going to assume that Jake still wins, mostly because I think Gabby is more likely to ask non-impactful questions and is more likely to lie in the challenge, making her more likely to lose. From here, I think that Aiden gets voted out 4-3. Rhea votes for him out of hatred. Ali votes for him in order to weaken Jake, Gret votes for him to stop the boys from forming an alliance of 3, and Gabby follows Gret's lead. This sends Aiden home even if he, Jake, and Connor vote for Rhea. For episode 16, Gret probably wins immunity, just like in canon. Rhea probably votes for Connor to show him that she doesn't need him. Ali votes for Jake due to their fight in this episode. Jake votes for Ali for the same reasons. But for Gret, I think she knows that in order to keep a majority at the final 5, she needs full control of Ali. And in order for that to happen, she needs to keep Connor and Jake in the game as a clear duo that needs to be targeted. Thus, I think Gret targets Rhea, since she's the only one left who Gret could target that would be good for her game. Gabby's loyalty to Gret would make her follow Gret's lead, and I think Connor could be convinced to join them since he voted for Rhea at the canon final 7, creating a 3-1-1-1 vote that sends Rhea straight to the motel. Now, at the time that I'm making this video, I don't know the challenges from episode 17 onwards, so I can't reasonably judge whether or not Gabby makes it any further. Sure, even though Gabby has the totem in this timeline and can guarantee her spot in the final 4 by saving herself, we know from season 1 that Gabby is more than willing to use her totem to save an ally, so it's possible that Gabby could follow some weird train of logic, end up misusing her totem on Gret, and then get voted out at the final 5. But regardless of whether she gets 5th or 1st, we know for certain that if the episode 14 challenge isn't an elimination challenge, Gabby makes it further than 8th place. So I think it's safe to say that Gabby was twist screwed, just like the other 4 campers on this list. And that about does it for this video. What did you think of the video? Do you agree with my thoughts on these eliminations? Do you disagree? Which other campers do you think were screwed over by twists? Either way, please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like the video, click subscribe if you really like the video, and for some ending words of wisdom. Think twice before learning how to call a wolf, because one day, you might find yourself getting chased by one because of it. And let's face it, not many people can outrun a wolf. I know I can't. Thank you, and farewell.